Can I introduce myself? My name's Bruce Donald. I've had a 44-year engagement in the life of North Sydney, and being concerned with what's about to engulf us, I've become involved in this movement. I've been very privileged also to serve on the Australian Heritage Commission and be the chair of the Environmental Defenders Office, so I bring those dimensions to bear on the problem that we face. Can I say it's fitting that we first acknowledge that this land is the country of the Camaragal, acknowledging those people past and present, and indeed this occasion being a poignant reminder of our poor stewardship of a place taken from them without any agreement just 230 years ago. It's also very fitting that we begin with an acknowledgement of the death this week of a towering figure in the endeavours of so many of us to do a better job of looking after the place, Ted Mack. Ted energised the independent movement in North Sydney, begun by Carol Baker and her supporters, including me, in the 70s. Ted was mayor for 8 years until 1988 when the council truly put its stamp on the municipality. He then went on to break the political mould and represent us as an independent member in both the state and federal parliaments. Those of us who organised today's rally would like you all to observe a minute's silence for Ted and remember what he represents for the values we seek to preserve. Thank you very much. A very wide range of community groups are supporting today's rally, including the entire combined precincts within North Sydney Council, the recently formed Committee for North Sydney, community groups from Lane Cove Municipality, including the Greenwich Community Association, groups from Cameron, Narrabeen and Willoughby, and groups from wider Sydney who are all facing a tsunami of overdevelopment driven by what we see as an unholy alliance between greedy developers and a government willing to abandon proper planning and community participation and amenity.
Yes. Yes.
Many people say there's no point in opposing this, that the government has made all the decisions and they're just ticking the boxes. Well, remember when the community on the lower North Shore comes together, we always succeed against the odds. We saved Luna Park. We won back Waverton Peninsula. We stopped the council amalgamation. We've seen platypus preserved as public space. We beat the massive marina in Barry's Bay. Our list goes on.
Yeah.
And now across the metropolitan area, the domino effect is beginning, with the Minister for Finance in the Berejiklian government itself standing up for the people of Ryde against massive overdevelopment. And we also see the moratorium on other preferred precinct plans along the metro line. So let's get started. Why did we choose this place? Well, because take a look at that western sky. Because if we lose this battle, that sky is gone. From St Leonards to North Sydney. It won't be there anymore. And that is why we have to come together to make the point to government that this is not acceptable. Yes. Can I introduce our first speaker? John Hancock is a 30-year resident of Wollstonecraft, a distinguished engineer and a former CEO of Clyde Engineering. He knows all about big infrastructure projects and he's been able to evaluate all of these. He will give us the important context in which these massive projects are proposed. Ladies and gentlemen, John Hancock.
Thank you very much, Bruce. We're being asked to accommodate a whole lot more people in the area. This is not the way to do it. Today, however, this wonderful village of Crow's Nest is under attack by a draft plan that threatens to drown it in high-rise residential buildings. The actual plan requires job creation. And doing that whilst they're starving it of the necessary and essential community benefits, such as this beautiful park. We need more of these. The plan released 3 weeks ago is the creation of the Department of Planning, and it's for the 20-year period to 2036. The two councils most affected by this plan are North Sydney and Lane Cove. It is a draft for community consultation. You may be surprised to know that already there is a plan in place for a period from 2016 to 2021. And that North Sydney Council is already exceeding its targets in that regard. So we don't need people to tell us what to do. But the new kid on the block is this metro. It's been given extraordinary powers to not only build a railway, but design and build the integrated developments above the station. They intend to sell their airspace above the new station to developers for the highest price. So we don't want two 27-storey buildings just over in that sky over there, plus a 17-storey hotel and an 8-storey building right on the border of this park. Now they are just proceeding on this plan despite the fact that the current LEP prohibits such scale and height, whilst making an application for rezoning that this site be a special case. This is the core of our protest. Metro is facilitating the development drive by other developers. I object strongly, and you should too, I think, that there has been an apparent abuse of process here. Metro and the government is not interested in what the public says. Metro has made no case to support the integrated development, but produces a report that attempts to justify it. In regard to the rest of the plan, here are a few big picture facts to consider. The area that's asked to be rezoned, including the precinct within Lane Cove, is just 1.8 square kilometres, not a large area. And the current resident population in that is 15,600 people. These are not my figures, these are the figures in the plan. The plan adds 10,800 residents in 6,800 more buildings. That equates to just under 15,000 people in each square kilometre of land. That's a little bit like Manhattan, but without the Central Park. No planned increase in parks or playing fields are provided in this plan. Similarly, no definite plans for the number of schools we need. We estimate, on our calculation, on these figures, that the government will collect conservatively $600 million to $1 billion in stamp duties and special infrastructure contributions over the planned period. Yet the plan fails to plough any of that money back into our area for schools, playing fields, parks, community buildings, road upgrades and the like. So this battle has been on two fronts. On the one hand, the government with two armies. The Department of Planning in the strategic control, with the rules and strategy being dictated. Sydney Metro like the cavalry, with expanded planning powers forging through our flanks as if we don't exist. All we have to fight with is our voice and our vote. We are sick of being ignored. Stop the Department of Planning micromanaging our planning and tell the Metro to get real. We want high-rise to stop now. Overdevelopment, we're over it. Thank you.
Our next speaker, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome to the microphone Barbara de Graaff, one of those tireless workers in our municipality that most of you will know. She was part of the Save Luna Park team and she never stops. So Barbara de Graaff.
My name's Barbara de Graaff, and as Bruce said, I'm a local resident, and despite this accent of mine, I've lived here in Australia for more than half my life, most of it right here in Crow's Nest. So today, the experience I've had living here is that our community has always supported development, well-planned development. And what we're fighting against today is poorly planned overdevelopment without the necessary infrastructure and services to support it. So we're not against development. We want it well done. We want to keep our community livable. We're fighting against living in a high-rise shoebox.
Indeed.
People need and deserve more space. The government's plans for Crow's Nest and St. Leonards would allow 2 Blues Point towers right over there on top of that metro station. Now, I'm not opposed to the metro, but I am opposed to 2 Blues Point towers on top of that metro station without the benefit of any public open space around such buildings.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
I'm opposed to a 17-story hotel where our post office used to be. It's too much. I'm opposed to 8-story commercial building on top of where Bow Repairs used to be. Why not make that space part of this park? There's an opportunity. We need to fight for the opportunities that exist for open space because there are very few in this area. And just down the road in what they have now renamed St. Leonards South is another monstrosity. There are currently 138 houses that have been bought by developers The intention there is to build 2,400 units. That would take the population from just 400 today to closer to 5,000 when they're done. Although this is slightly lower scale, it's too much. Where are the schools to support it? Are kids meant to go to school in 2-story and 3-story demountables? And most unbelievably is the fact that this new plan has they have nominated the site. We call the triangle site or the 5 ways intersection. Okay, it's opposite Woolies, Falcon Street, Alexander Street, and the highway. It's got an S on it. That means that it's open for 50-story development. Okay, now I don't know about you, but I'm outraged. Absolutely 100% outraged. And if a 50-story building goes up on that corner, we will have 50-story buildings from St. Leonards to North Sydney. So if these plans go through, just imagine it. Imagine the congestion. How on earth is anyone going to get into these buildings on Little Clark Lane? We already have gridlock on Falcon Street, Alexander Street, and the highway, just trying to get into Woolworths. Imagine a 50-story building. Imagine these towering, looming skyscrapers. They're going to loom over Wollstonecraft. They're going to loom over Greenwich. They're going to loom over Naremburn. They're going to loom over little old Crow's Nest. It's important that it's important to save these places, all of them. So today, what we're fighting for is development that meets the brief. The Department of Planning spent time talking to us, and many of us have contributed, asking what it is we value. And they've come back and they've written those things down in their local character planning statements. But when it comes to the plans that they propose for the area, those plans do not meet the brief. They do not meet the brief. 50-story skyscrapers and 27-story residential towers overpowering low and medium-rise Crow's Nest, Wollstonecraft, St. Leonards does not meet the brief. We want more civic space, open space, green space, and pocket parks. We want additional community facilities, recreational facilities. We also want a higher percentage of 3-bedroom apartments in all of these developments that are going up. We want families to live here and stay here. We want downsizers to come here. We want people to be able to have space, not be shoehorned into a shoebox in the sky. We also want affordable housing. I want our local teachers, nurses, people like me, I want people to be able to afford to live here. The target in this plan is a measly 5%. Crow's Nest has a working class heritage. We pride ourselves on a very diverse community that gets along with one another. We have a healthy mix of commercial and residential, and we want it to stay that way. We don't want the isolation that comes from high-rise. So please, I urge you to say no to 50 and 60-story buildings. Say no to the current overdevelopment plans for the metro. It needs to come way down in scale. It needs to be appropriate. And say no, please say no to the 50-story designation on the triangle site outside of Woolworths there. Thank you.